I want to start by saying I'm not here to offer any easy answers, and I'm not here because I'm an expert. I'm here just because the silence and the stigma can really just swallow you up. And I don't want anyone else going through this. And if you are, I want you to get the support that you need. If you're a parent who has lost a child, as a mother, I want you to know that you're not alone. And even if it feels that way right now, and if you're someone who is struggling or wondering whether life is worth living, I want you to watch and really hear this. Because what you feel is real, but it doesn't have to be the end of your story. I'm a mum who lost my beautiful daughter to suicide. Talking about that still feels unreal, to say it out loud. But I'm sharing our story because grief is so dark in isolation, and survival often begins with being seen. So sit with me, grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I'm drinking hibiscus tea because I've just come back from Egypt, and this has got so many benefits, from balancing hormones, liver and heart health, vitamins, and it aids digestion. So I've included this on my Amazon storefront, and other things that have helped me while I've been grieving. So the link is in the bio, so please just take a look if you want to. When my daughter died, Diva, life changed in an instant, in a heartbeat. Not gradually, and with no warning that I could prepare for it. 1 minute we had a future that I assumed would happen, although it was lockdown, and that was very confusing. And then the next thing, there was just nothing but shock and an empty space. It was a text asking me to call her friend, and then I need to come to the hospital, only to arrive and to be told there was nothing they could do. So this is Suki, and she was Diva's cat. The early days just felt so unreal. I remember just moving from room to room as though I was in another world or underwater. People spoke to me and I just would nod or answer, but their words just didn't really land. And those words that did were often because they were like a punch to my gut. But I'll go on about that further. But my body did keep breathing, and my mind just couldn't keep up because nothing made sense anymore. And very quickly, in the first 2 weeks, I had to do things that no parent should ever have to do. I had to plan a funeral that I didn't even want to go to. I had to choose music, photos and readings, when all I wanted to do was just wake up from the nightmare that I'm in. I had to sit with paperwork and decisions while my whole life, my whole being, everything, I was just screaming inside because how can this be real? And on top of that, I had to tell people again and again, friends, family, work, each time watching their faces change, and each time reliving the moment all over again. Even over 5 years later, I still find myself having to tell people and seeing the shock on their face and just absolute horror. While me as the mother, I'm the calm one on the outside. But inside, my insides are just absolutely shredded. The future just disappeared overnight. Everything that I'd imagined, even though there's variations on that, you know, the milestones, the weddings, babies, grandchildren, ordinary days that we shared, it all just vanished. And her future vanished, my future vanished. And in its place was just this emptiness. It was just so massive. It just felt so dangerous and just awful. Just, there's no words. People often ask me what helped me survive in those early days. But I didn't really survive them well. I just survived them minute by minute. I survived them, and that's what counts. What helped were the little things. You know? Breathe in more slowly when someone reminded me to. Friends chattering together without the pressure of me having to say a single word. I could join in the conversation if I wanted. Meals being cooked for me. Company. Understanding that I was living in hell. Those that reminded me, have you drank any water? You know, when I hadn't realised I was getting dehydrated. Walking out the trauma on long walks, even now, I still benefit from that. And me allowing the day to end without expecting myself to be okay. What didn't help were the comments that came, often with good intentions. Like, she's in a better place. Those words just landed like blows because there was no better place than with her mum, alive. There was no peace in losing a child. Then there were offers of support, just to be around you to know what had happened, just so they could tell others. And there were so many who wanted to know the signs because they were worried about their loved ones, which is completely understandable, but the wrong timing. And alongside my own grief was a constant fear for others, particularly in the first year alone. I must have attended A&E at least 3 or 4 times. You know, and you think that, you know, these people, they're hearing, at least she's in a better place. At least she's not in pain now. You know, these phrases can be dangerous because when you're in that dark place, those phrases reinforce the thoughts of suicide ideation. You know, every phone call just made my heart race. Every text message, I would just think, what am I going to be told? You know, and every silence just felt loaded. Every time I went back to A&E, it took me back to the moment that I went there and I'd been told that my world had ended. And I was there staying alive for people who were trying to end their lives. I worried constantly that someone else would die. I still do. And at the same time, I worried that people were worried about me. And I didn't like that either, that people were worried that I might be next. Still, to this day, I struggle when texts or calls go unanswered. which is why I don't reach out to people like I used to. I can't mind read, and the silence, it can mean anything, and it's deafening. So whatever else I'm doing with my day, the fact that someone's not replied, just, I don't know whether to run to go and find out whether they're okay, or am I being overdramatic? In the beginning, I tried to hold down work and uni because routine can help. And obviously it's expected because the world just keeps on moving, even when yours has stopped. But my concentration was really fragile. And I just can't read like I used to. Like, I can't process the words. And grief doesn't clock out during work hours. And it can create a fog, which, although it's there to protect you, it also creates a vulnerability. I still stumble on remembering words or get them wrong, and spellings, which I used to be really good at, and basic tasks. And that fog meant that people took advantage, whether that was stealing from me or just taking advantage of me in other ways that helped them. Then there was the inquest, something no one really prepares you for. You learn details that you didn't know before, and you have to read clinical terms and often mistruths and misunderstandings about your child. And you also learn some of the things that you also misunderstood about your child. And you sit through the procedures and the timelines, and you hear language that just feels so cold when they're talking about your child, who you love more than anything. It's necessary, but it's also brutal. And it reopens the wounds that have barely started healing. It's another trauma. What I learned through all of this is that silence is dangerous. For bereaved parents, it leaves us isolated. And for those who are struggling, it convinces them that they're alone. So if you're watching this and thinking about ending your life, I want you to really hear this clearly. Your absence would leave a shockwave behind that you cannot even imagine. And that's not just pain, but it's lifelong questions, fear, trauma, and grief that never fully leaves the people who love you the most. That doesn't mean that you should feel guilty. It means that you matter more than your pain is telling you right now. Find ways to keep going for another day, and don't give up trying. I'll put some resources in the description. And if you are a newly bereaved mum, especially in those early months, I want you to know that the fear, the numbness, and the exhaustion and the anger are all part of the grief. And you're not failing, you're not falling apart because you can't see a future yet. The future's not gone, it's just hidden right now. And in time, we have to build a new future that looks very different to the one that we had. I started talking about this because I don't want other parents to feel as alone as I did, and often still do. And I don't want struggling young people or adults to believe that silence is safer than reaching out. In future videos, I'll talk honestly about grief, trauma, survival, and the slow, unpredictable process of learning to live again. And we'll talk about the practicalities, the emotional truths, the conversations people avoid but desperately need, and about how I'm trying to rebuild my life and how you may rebuild yours. If this resonates with you, you're very welcome here. And if you're struggling right now, please consider reaching out to someone today. Don't wait until tomorrow. And that could be a friend, a professional, a helpline. Staying is an act of courage. And thank you if you've stayed here today. Thank you for listening and thank you for being here. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.